Let's talk about money and navigating the cash crunch, part 3. So, when a diver goes into the water, they can swim and they've got a certain amount of oxygen in their lungs. If they run out of that oxygen, they need to get to the surface as fast as possible or else things are over. If they want to extend their ability to stay underwater, they need a tank on their back, right? A scuba tank. So I think a lot of people think about income as what's needed the most, when in fact, income is kind of like the flippers on our feet that we could put on to swim faster, when in fact, it's oxygen in the tank, it's cash that's the oxygen in the tank that allows us to stay, to stay swimming and moving, even if it's a little bit slower, right? So that's why we talk about navigating the cash crunch, is because at the end of the day, the oxygen in business and also in personal finance is actually how much cash do we have access to. So this underscores our next lesson here, which is just how crucial early action is. What I mean by that is the sooner that you take action with everything that I'm sharing here, the more comfortable and certain things are going to be for you. Let me give you a very quick example. And this is just simple math, right? If you've got $1,000 in the bank and your life costs you $1,000 a month, then you have 1 month of runway. You have 1 month of cash that you've got in the bank to be able to spend. Even if you had no income for an entire month, you'd be able to make it because you've got $1,000 in the bank and your monthly expenses are $1,000. Now, if you decided to cut expenses, which is one of our lessons here, and you could get your expenses down to $500, well, in your bank, you've got $1,000, which means you now have 2 months of runway because your $1,000 can now stretch over 2 months instead of just one. It goes further than that, though. It goes further than that. I know that some of the SBA loans from the Small Business Administration in the United States, the period that applications are opening is coming up in a few days. And then after that, eligibility closes, I think it's like June 20th or June 30th. So there's only a limited amount of time. And even on the application website itself, it literally says, it recommends that you apply as early as possible because there is only so much money available and the load of applications they're expecting is going to be crushing. The sooner that you can get your name in early, in as many places as you need to, the more secure you're going to be. So another example of taking action early. Even if we talk about conversations, right? In the last video in this series, we talked a lot about how do you want to be remembered, and very much about honoring agreements and honoring relationships that we have through this whole situation. And so the sooner that you can speak up with your teammates, with your loved ones, with your vendors, with your banks, the sooner that they can help you to actually be a part of the solution. I know for myself, it was weeks ago that I did my first round of expense management, just canceling subscriptions I didn't need anymore, online tools that I wasn't using. And it was a few weeks ago, even before we saw any real dip in sales, that I spoke up with my team and let them know that, prepare your families in case there is a dip. And, as a team, we've also had, we spent, quite a few hours talking about where do we need to go from here. And we've done all of this earlier than I think a lot of businesses are doing it. So not to say that we're doing it perfectly or that we're immune from things going badly. We definitely have our challenges too. And it only emphasizes the importance to speak up early and to speak up often. So taking action early on all of these strategies buys you your number one most important asset. So you might say, oh, well then, Tim, my most important asset is cash then, right? Well, yeah, cash is ultimately the oxygen in the tank. I'd say one step beyond that, though, is actually time. Can you buy yourself enough time? And cash gives you time. The more cash in your oxygen tank, the longer that you can swim, right? So why is time so important right now? Well, first of all, time determines how long you can stay in the game until we find a vaccine or we find a combination of therapies or medicines to get past the coronavirus, right? Or at least get it to a point of containment, a point of now we know, like, there's protocols in place in case something happens if someone is sick so that they can be detected early, and now we can safely all go back to work, or at least some meaningful version of back to work so that cities are kind of like unlocked and now commerce is flowing again. That day is going to come. That day is absolutely going to come. No questions about it. It's going to be measured in months, not years, okay? And so we need to just buy ourselves time until the medical community can catch up with the coronavirus. So that is one way that time is the most important. Time also is really, really important from the place of taking advantage of new opportunities, right? A first mover's advantage. So if you are really honest with yourself, you're able to take a look at your numbers, you get clear on where you are and how much runway you've got, and now you can build yourself a little bit of time by using some of the strategies I'm sharing with you here. Now you've got time to take advantage of opportunities early, right? There's a couple products I know of. I won't talk about them because there's some confidentiality there, but they are exactly tailored to the after coronavirus world, and the people I know that are behind them are the first movers, and they will be to market before everyone else. So that's an example of time. An even shorter term version of time is us needing to make sure that we've got the amount of time we need to be able to launch, whatever the next thing is to pivot our businesses. So, if it's going to take you 4 weeks to launch something new, but you've only got 1 week of cash, that's a major problem. We got to find a way to extend that runway. So now you do have, 4, 6, 8 weeks of cash. So you've got the time to make the pivot, that you and your team have the time to be able to make the pivot. So I would take action earlier, in fact, right now, on the strategies I'm sharing with you in this, because the clock is ticking, no question about it. And I don't mean to bring any panic to the situation. As you've heard me say many times before, it's important to be urgent, not anxious, okay? And I just really, really think getting time on your side should really be a number one priority. And everything we're talking about here, deploy it ASAP. I've got another 10 videos or so over the coming week or two. Get those deployed ASAP, and you'll be very glad that you did. If you found this to be helpful, head over to navigatethecashcrunch.com. I've got a free training there, including a free spreadsheet. You can punch your own numbers in to see how much runway you've got, and also a little video training that'll help you to know how to use a spreadsheet. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.